At 46 years old, I was facing hip surgery. I'll let you know that I was terrified, and because of that terror, you guys get to benefit. I'm going to share with you how my extreme pain led to a discovery about food that changed my entire life. I not only healed my hip, Wellness Warrior, I accidentally learned how to lose weight and then lost 80 pounds. I want to share this with you because it's the reason I started this channel. My health was deteriorating, and by 46 years old, I had already lived 23 years of pain. I was exhausted all the time. I was obese, Wellness Warrior. Yet somehow, I'm standing here in front of you today at goal weight. I want to talk to you about how I got here because you can do the same thing. What's really scary is that after 23 years, pain had become my normal. I do activities with friends, and eventually I did activities with my daughter, pushing through the pain, and then take days to recover. By the time my daughter was born, it could take me 2-3 days just to feel good enough to go back to work on Monday. And yeah, it worked because of the fact that I was only doing activities on the weekends as I work all week. The thing that I didn't realize was that I was actually limiting myself to doing stuff on the weekends because I knew I needed the time to recover. I was constantly in pain. And then one day I woke up shooting pain in my hip. Intense. A pain I'd never felt before, and I'd already had a child. I hadn't fallen. I hadn't done any sports the day before or anything to explain that all of a sudden I couldn't stand on my right leg. And I got in front of my doctor, and my doctor explained to me that I needed to wait until my hip created the situation where I was a candidate for surgery. That meant I needed to wait for my hip to fail. My world fell apart. First of all, the pain that I was feeling, and he was telling me that my hip hadn't failed yet. But secondly, if I hadn't completely failed, so my hip was still somewhat functional, why weren't we trying to fix it? For context, Wellness Warrior, standing and walking felt excruciating. Sitting was painful. Laying down was painful. There was no position that I could be in that wasn't kicking my ass. So when he was asking me to wait for my hip to fail, now, I started this off by telling you that I lost 80 pounds. I was obese, Wellness Warrior. I was pretty sure that somehow my weight had something to do with my hip. And if I could just lose some weight, maybe this problem would go away. I'll tell you right now that looking back on that, it seems so much wishful thinking, but I would rather do something to try to help myself than just wait for the hip to fail. So that's what I did. All right, I decided I'm going to try to lose some weight. How do we lose weight? We all know what to do, right? You need to exercise and you need to change the way you're eating. The only thing that I was able to do at that point in time with the way that I was feeling was hobble around. So that's what I did. I started to go for walks every single day as far as I could walk because I was trying to lose weight. And the other thing that I did for my good health was go back to my healthy eating. So things like oatmeal for breakfast. I increased the amount of fruit that I was eating. I cut down on the fatty meats. And after 8 months, I stopped eating junk food. And after 8 months of doing all of that, nothing. Not even a pound lost. I didn't lose anything. First of all, I'll tell you that when I stepped on the scale month after month and saw that nothing was changing, really frustrated because in my head, I'm thinking, it's because I cannot walk fast enough because I'm hobbling along. But I did get one thing out of all that walking, Wellness Warrior. I noticed that when I was able to walk for more than 10 minutes, when I got back to my office, I was able to sit for period of time. And for some of the really long walks, I would be able to get 90 minutes worth of sitting. So somehow walking was making my leg feel, or my hip feel better. I still had my daughter to care for and my work to do. So I wasn't always able to fit a walk in at night, but I was going for a walk every lunchtime. So that meant that during my day, I could get through a portion of it okay, but at night, I still had trouble sleeping and I was still struggling. So of course, when you can't sleep, what do? I'm on my phone, I'm on my computer, desperately scrolling, trying to find answers to my health. And one night, I asked the right question. I asked, what does it mean when your hip hurts, but walking makes it feel better? And I was shocked by the answer. For the first time, I was pointed towards inflammation. My doctor had never mentioned that word to me. Not at all. So then, of course, I searched, how do you solve inflammation? And Wellness Warrior, my entire world didn't just change. It exploded. Because none of what I was reading made any kind of sense. So I did more research. And I did more research. And the next thing I knew, it had been a month and a half of me trying to do research and searching, trying to figure out if what I was reading could possibly be true. And how could I possibly implement what I was learning? In February 2018, I learned that carbohydrates cause inflammation. That's not just sugar in junk food causing inflammation. That's all fruits, vegetables, grains, nuts, seeds, legumes. If it grows in the ground, it contains carbohydrates, and those are causing inflammation. By the way, sugar and carbs are two words for the same stuff. I fought the idea that this could be true because my entire life I'd been taught that fat causes weight gain and health problems. And now here it was, everything was being flipped over. All the things that I was told were caused by fat, I was now learning were caused by carbohydrates. Obviously, in order to remove carbohydrates from my diet meant getting the majority of my energy through fat. And I'm saying obviously, did you know that? Did you know that we get most of our energy from sugar on a standard American, standard Canadian diet? And now I was learning that I had to try to get it from This was a hard pill to swallow, and I will guarantee you, Wellness Warrior, that when I was searching to learn how I could remove sugar to heal my hip, I was skeptical that I was going to find an answer. I was like, there's no way that there's a way to do this. And then that's when I found keto. On April 20th, 2018, I made a grocery list. I went to the store and I bought some low carb vegetables. I stuck to the ones that I typically ate. And then I had a few suggestions from my dad of other ones that he thought I would like. My dad's a chef. So I bought what he told me to buy, and then I spiced them the way that he told me to spice them. And I ate my first keto meals that week. So it started on a Friday, and I did a week's full of cooking, and I ate those same vegetables every single day for the entire week. And guess what? It tasted good. I ate the meats that I normally ate. I didn't change that. I just cooked the same meats. The only difference was I ate the fat without feeling guilty about it. Now, from day one, I removed all the obvious junk food and any packaged foods that had a carb count that would put me over my half of my day's carb count for the day. So for example, anything that a serving had 10 grams of carbs or more, I took it out of my diet because it didn't make sense to me that I was going to give 10 grams of carbs to a slice of bread. Well, 15. A slice of bread was 15 grams of carbs. It didn't make sense to me that I would do that. So I just took those things out of my diet. That pretty much meant that most packaged foods for me got eliminated. And full transparency, I wasn't a person that ate fruit that much anyway. So adding fruit into my diet just was not necessary. So I didn't do it. I stuck to vegetables, and even my vegetables, I had to make huge changes because for me, potatoes, carrots, broccoli, and cabbage were my main go-to vegetables. I tolerate peas, but those were my go-to things. So I only got to keep cabbage and broccoli. I changed everything else based on my dad's recommendations. I went and got some leafy vegetables. And although this was a huge change to my very poor diet of highly processed foods, oven ready meals that I ate because, in all honesty, my mom cooked for my daughter because of the hour that I would get home after work. So she was already fed and I only needed to take care of myself. And I wasn't doing a very good job of it, just to be honest. It wasn't hard to switch to these healthy foods because I was seasoning them well and they tasted good to me. My meals tasted good and my desire to walk around normally was high, and so therefore I stuck to the diet. What was hard was 3 days into eating keto, I had withdrawal. The most notable symptoms that I had was extreme hunger, no matter how much I ate. Grumpy, my mood was like I was not in a good mood. I felt nauseous. I had a headache that would not go away. And my temperature, I was hot, then I was cold, and I just couldn't seem to feel comfortable in my temperature, my body. I couldn't feel comfortable. And only because of the work that I do, I was able to recognize that, oh my gosh, I'm having withdrawal. But those were the 2 worst days that I had ever had, I would say, since giving birth. Now, I've since learned that withdrawal symptoms in our community are called keto flu. We need to stop calling withdrawal keto flu. That hides what is actually happening, and your body has been trained to chase sugar. And if you don't know that, then you'll think that those thoughts of you wanting sugar are because you like it. When alcohol is ruining someone's life and they drink, it isn't because they like alcohol. It's because they're not in control. What's going to happen is you're going to find yourself at a family function or a work party with lots of garbage all around you. If you aren't prepared, if you don't already know that you're addicted, you're going to believe that the cravings you're having are a decision rather than your addiction acting up. Now, lucky for me, my pain was so intense that my focus was unshakable, Wellness Warrior. All the while that I was eating vegetables and meat, I kept reading about keto. I kept learning. I wanted to know and understand as much as I could find. I wanted everything. I wanted to know every little detail. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. So I didn't have a theoretical idea already in my head about why the food should do what it was. So when I was learning stuff, I was actually learning stuff. My goal was to make sure that I wasn't doing something that was going to harm my body in the long run. What I found was that there were a bunch of people who had been doing keto, but then they stopped. And what happened was that their weight came back. They regained the weight. Or they resumed whatever health issues they were able to solve, and their addiction came back with a vengeance. Now, with the work that I do, this all made sense to me, right? If you stop using and then you go back, you get pulled right back in. Fast forward, Wellness Warrior, this information sold me. I'm living my life. It's been months now that I'm doing keto. And Pat and I and the kids are on vacation. And Pat asked me a pivotal question. Wasn't expecting it. He looks at me and goes, "How's your hip?" He asked me that question because he knows that whenever we do a lot of stuff, I typically need a few days to recover under normal circumstances. But here we are. I have this hip problem. At that moment, Wellness Warrior, I realized I couldn't remember the last time my hip had hurt me. I felt fine. That was 3 months after starting keto. My hip wasn't hurting me anymore. But it gets even better. When he asked me that question, I realized I felt fine. Not just my hip. All of my joints felt fine. like I still do right now. At the time, I was still overweight. I'd only lost, well, only. I shouldn't say only like that. I had lost 38 pounds by that point. That 38-pound loss helped me to understand that the pain that I had been living wasn't about my extra weight. And you might say, but you lost 40 pounds almost. Like, how can you say that? Because I was thinking back, when did this happen? When did the pain go away? And I couldn't think of it. So that's the first part. But something else happened that made me really realize it wasn't about my weight. I don't cheat on my diet right now because back at the beginning of my weight loss journey, sometimes I would miscalculate or even not check whether or not there was, like, how much carb was in something. And I've had a few occasions where I went over my carb count. And guess what happened? Almost immediately, within hours of eating the wrong thing or eating too much of something, hip pain was back with knocking me over, Wellness Warrior. So I don't cheat on my diet, but I also know that it's what I eat that causes my joints to be in pain or helps me to feel good. And then eventually, after 5 months of doing a keto diet, I was at goal weight. And I've been there ever since. I also solved a rash that I had because of my keto diet. I had had the rash since I was like 28 years old and would come and go, come and go, come and go. After keto, the rash went away, hasn't come back. My sleep improved. I have better mental clarity. And then there's these other things that people don't talk about much. Like, for example, one of the ones I'll share with you is that I have less gas since doing keto. Almost like negligible gas. I have a huge list of benefits that I might share in another video. If you guys care at all, you can let me know. But to me, the most important benefit that I got from doing a keto diet is that I did not have hip surgery. After 3 months of eating properly, I solved all of my joint pain, the intense hip pain included. Now, you can imagine that I was quite excited about my healing of my hip with food. And so at my next doctor's appointment, I was so excited to tell my doctor about what I had done. And my doctor, not impressed. Her conclusion? This is okay as a temporary fix, but you cannot do keto long term. This is not sustainable. That's what I was told. Knowing what I know about getting away from addiction, of course, I challenged her on what she was telling me. As a matter of fact, every doctor that I've spoken to after that doctor, because I've had more doctor's appointments, I've argued with about whether or not keto is sustainable, first of all, and whether or not I should go back to the food that I was addicted to, because I lived withdrawal. I know that that was not healthy for me. And all of their final conclusions is I will end up in the hospital. That's what I was told. Wellness Warrior, I can't argue with that. At some point, it's inevitable that I will end up in the hospital, as will every person on the planet. I just know it won't be because I'm eating healthier. That's not what's going to put me in the hospital. Guaranteed. So, if you have joint pain, no. If you have pain in your body that's due to any, okay, no, that's not what I want to say. What I want to say is, if you want to be healthy, you should be eating healthy food. The truth is, eating healthy should be our focus no matter what is happening with our body. We've all been fooled into thinking that we can eat junk when we're young because somehow youth protects us from disease. That isn't true, Wellness Warrior. Small bodies are even more impacted by toxins. We know that because when we give medication to our children, we give them a smaller dose than adults get. So size of body actually matters. Sugar is a toxin, and our children have been eating large amounts of sugar from day one. As soon as we take them off the breast, we start feeding them powdered garbage baby cereals. That's why There are so many young people in the hospitals with all kinds of ailments that typically only older people get. That's why we have young people that are on medications, they're obese, they're diabetic. Wellness Warrior, the best time to start eating healthy is at the beginning of your life. So please feed your children healthy food. The second best time is when you learn this kind of information. Start keto today, right away. Don't wait. Now, I have several videos on how to eat keto. I'll link a playlist in the pinned comment below. Your body deserves real food. So eat meat, fish, poultry, and eggs so your body can give you the amazing health that you deserve. A healthy body regulates its weight, Wellness Warrior. So click on that link. Let's go.